right, folks, closing arguments began today in the trial of Donald Trump. You know, he was on trial for, they keep calling a hush money trial, but it's not. He was violating campaign finance rules. Well, every single day he's out there talking to the cameras, complaining, whining about this and that. So today the Biden campaign was like, what the hell? Since all the media's out there with all the cameras, we're going to show up ourselves, led by actor Robert De Niro. And, ooh, Lord, did he take it to him.
This is my neighborhood, downtown New York City. I grew up here and feel at home in these streets. I feel comfortable. The Twin Towers fell just over here, just over there. This part of the city was like a ghost town. But we vowed we would not allow terrorists to change our way of life. And we started the Tribeca Festival to bring people back. I love this city. I love this city. I don't want to destroy it. Donald Trump wants to destroy not only the city, but the country, and eventually he could destroy the world. But we vowed we would not allow terrorists. I owe this city a lot. And that's why it's so weird that Donald Trump is just across the street. Because he doesn't belong in my city. I don't know where he belongs, but he surely doesn't belong here. We New Yorkers used to tolerate him when he was just another grubby real estate hustler masquerading as a big shot, a two-bit playboy lying his way into the tabloids, pretending to be a spokesperson for himself. He was calling it as himself for himself, to fool the press into inflating his net worth. A clown. But this city is pretty accommodating. We make room for clowns. We have them all over the city. People who do crazy things in the street, we tolerate it. It's part of the city, it's part of the culture. But not a person like Trump who will eventually run the country. That does not work, and we all know that. Anyway, we make room for clowns, to each his own. But no one takes him or took him really seriously. They take him seriously now, of course. But around the country, people who didn't know him, as we did, started to support him. They bought into his bullshit. Trump bought their votes with outrageous lies and empty promises. He got the most.
Harry Dunn, a former U.S. Capitol Police officer who, of course, failed in his bid to run for Congress in Maryland, plus Michael Fanone, a former D.C. police officer, they also spoke at the news conference, refocusing the attention on what took place on January 6th, of course, led by Donald Trump.
I came here today to remind Americans of what Donald Trump is capable of and the violence that he unleashed on all Americans on January 6, 2021. For 2 decades, I was a D.C. police officer serving the citizens of the District of Columbia, primarily working in narcotics. On January 6, 2021, I heard distress calls coming from fellow police officers on the Capitol as thousands of Trump supporters rushed them and brutally assaulted members of law enforcement. That day, I, like many other, hundreds of other D.C. police officers, put on a uniform and responded to the Capitol to assist our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, defending the Capitol from a violent, armed mob of Trump's supporters. These supporters were fueled by Trump's lies and the lies of his surrogates, lies that the 2020 election was stolen. Those same lies have been spewed by Donald Trump and his surrogates about what happened to me and so many other police officers on January 6, 2021. That day, I was brutally assaulted. I was pulled from the police line by a man named Albuquerque Head, a Trump supporter who later pled guilty to his violent assault on me. While being restrained by the violent mob, I was beaten. An individual named Kyle Young tried to strip me of my firearm, while chants of kill him with his own gun were echoed by other members of the crowd. At that time, Thomas Civic, a man from Buffalo, New York, stripped me of my badge and my police radio, my lifeline to call for help from other officers. All the while, I continued to be beaten and then struck with a taser on my neck by Daniel Rodriguez, another Trump supporter who also pled guilty to his violent assault on me. All four of these individuals are self-admitted Trump supporters. All four of them committed violent assault on law enforcement. I'm just one representative of the hundreds of police officers that were assaulted that day by Donald Trump supporters, inspired by his lies. The lies that continue to this day to inspire my fellow Americans to turn against their fellow Americans, to turn against police officers. At the end of the day, this election is about Donald Trump and his vision for the office of the President of the United States. Not as a public servant who answers to the elected, to the people who elected him, but as an authoritarian who answers to and serves only himself.
If January 6th didn't happen, we wouldn't be here right now. I'd still be at work, working at the United States Capitol. I appreciate the words by Mr. De Niro, Officer Fanone, but anytime I get an opportunity to acknowledge, address, and thank the men and women of the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police Department who served that day to protect our democracy, to protect each other, to make sure everybody got to go home that night. That's what we fought for that day. The fight for a lot of us didn't end on January 6th, that evening when we went home. The fight still continues now. What happened that day was an attempt to overthrow an election. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy and the safety of communities across the country today. He has encouraged and continued to encourage political violence. We've been called traitors just today. We were all called traitors on January 6th for doing our job. And yes, we protected Republicans. We protected Democrats alike. It's not about the story that we don't agree with. Political violence is never acceptable. But you have a presidential candidate, that champions it, that encourages it, that supports it. We cannot have that. Officer Sicknick, he died the day after January 6th. They said it was because of a stroke, but the events of January 6th caused it. His father said it best. Charles Sicknick, Trump is the reason why my son is dead. Trump does whatever will get him votes and helps Donald Trump. He is about himself. He calls the criminals who attacked our Capitol patriots. He calls the men and women who died serving and protecting this country suckers and losers. He constantly echoes the words of dictators and invokes the language of Nazi Germany, embracing political violence, pledging to rule as a dictator on day one. Those aren't our talking points. Those aren't left news talking points. He said it. Americans need to wake up. This is not a drill. Mr. De Niro said he's not trying to scare you. When I just unsuccessfully ran for office. A lot of people that I met out there said they were afraid. They're scared to see what another Trump presidency looks like. I try to pride myself in having some type of way to make people feel comfortable, saying some kind of a word, a hug, a look, or something, it's going to be okay. I couldn't say that to those individuals. I couldn't say it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. We can't count on these institutions to stop Donald Trump. It's going to take us Americans at the ballot box to defeat him once and for all.
My panel, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA. Joining us from D.C., Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor, also out of D.C. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles. Joe, start with you. The trial is going on. Closing arguments begin today. Of course, jury will get this case very soon. You got folks like Cara Rove on Fox News saying, oh, this was awful, this was bad. The Biden campaign, they politicized this. I'm sorry. Hasn't Trump been doing that every single day, attacking the judge, attacking prosecutors, calling Bragg a Soros DA, even though George Soros didn't give any money nor support Alvin Bragg? I mean, so this nonsense that, they shouldn't have said anything. What do you say?
I say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. They've been doing that every day. Trump has been doing that every day. And by the way, BTW, IJS, Robert De Niro, and the officers are not in Congress. They're not shirking their responsibilities in Congress to go and do press conferences at the front door, as it were. And so, you know, this is a way to speak to the people. Most people see this through a political lens. And frankly, the Biden campaign is probably just a little bit more honest about the fact that if this is what they're doing, this is what we're going to do. So they can say that they don't like that they did it. You know, the Republicans can say that they don't like that the Democrats did this. But they certainly can't say that they don't understand what they're doing because they've been doing the same thing the whole time. And so, you know, this is turnabout being fair play. We'll see what happens with the trial. You know, there's an argument that, you know, it would be great if we could see it as it occur, because you're always seeing it through someone else's eyes now. You know, even a director of a movie is the go-between between you and a good book if the movie is made out of a book. So it would be great for us to see it directly, but we will see what happens as it pertains to what happens in the courtroom legally. And, you know, that's a whole nother show. But the fact that they would stand outside and acknowledge the political implications of what is going on right now is perhaps the most honest thing that they could have done, particularly understanding where we are right now and how everyone else seems to see it.
You know, this is called, Randy, taking the fight to them. And listen, if this is all the media is going to cover, they're going to have all the cameras there. What the hell? Go there and remind them what that thug did on January 6th.
Absolutely. You know, the Republicans have done a good job of always creating a circus because they are following a clown. So why not bring us to the circus? We might as well participate because we try to handle things in professional, you know, dignified ways, and the media does not like that. So I think it was brilliant that we started playing the game that they're playing. We started playing by their rules, or, you know, and so I think it was absolutely brilliant because that is what the media has followed and has liked. And we have short memories. We Americans have short memories. And the fact that we're considering this person to be our president after January 6th is just blows my mind. So people need to remember this terrorist attack and be reminded of who led it.
You know, Mustafa, I was cracking up laughing because there was some Fox News nutcase. She was like, oh, this is just wrong. They shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, put your violin away. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, they don't like when you check them. You know, it's interesting. You got the Speaker of the House. You got all these other folks who continue to come up there and pontificate and try and actually take the country's attention away from what's happening there in the trial. You know, it's also important, as Randy just said, to actually remind people of what you're going to get if you vote for Donald Trump. Now, everybody knows I never tell anybody who to vote for, but I do say pay attention to the individuals who are asking for your vote. Are they a person of honor? Are they a person who actually cares about someone more than themselves? So by refocusing what has happened in the past and what Donald Trump has brought forward, you can very easily answer the question, is he good for the country? Is he good for your family? Or is he someone who will take us back? So I appreciate both Michael and Harry and all those other officers who on January 6th stood the line and tried to do the right thing. It was good to see them there also. I had a chance to meet many of them over the years and working up on the Hill. And, you know, lots of times those guys and ladies don't get much love from folks, and they often are not seen, and of course they don't want to be. But, you know, we're in this moment now where we have to place a spotlight on those who are willing to stand up for our country and those who are actually trying to deconstruct the basic foundations that we have, because we don't have a perfect country. But when we have individuals who continue to sort of deconstruct at least the basic elements, then we know we're going to end up with. So I'm glad people are putting a spotlight.
You take the fight to them. That's the position that I've always had. And so what the hell, you got nothing to lose. And when the right starts whining and complaining, tell them, shut up. Just shut up.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
Take back the mic, take back the mic, take back the mic, take back the mic.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? Ready, ready, ready. We are a resurrection, and we are ready.